When you went to the divorce, I felt like the things you did to help me were...
Libby Brackie had the ideal life until, without warning, her world fell apart.
I had a marriage breakdown and 3 young children. My eldest was 10, Will was 7, and Elise was 3 at the time. And a very sudden marriage breakdown, to the point where, you know, not only myself as an adult was struggling to cope with the reality of it, I was noticing the kids were almost in a state of shock of what had just happened and why in particular, and really how to navigate their way through these new relationships, because their father at the time had recoupled with another person and they didn't know this person, so it was complicated.
In my world at the time, I was, to be completely honest, overwhelmed. I didn't know what was going on. You know, my parents had just got divorced. I was switching between houses, between my mum's house, my dad's house. You know, I was all over the joint.
With no skills to deal with his emotions, school became a struggle.
I was worried probably more about Will, worried about all of them, but Will being the only boy and middle child at that time, and 7, which I know was a really critical age in a boy's life, that they start to really, you know, hang out with their dad and connect with their dad, that he was no longer there. So that's why I wanted to bridge that gap.
So the Partners in Parenting program is an online program for parents who would like to get strategies to support their parenting of young people to reduce their child's risk of depression or anxiety problems.
Psychologist Marie Yap developed the Partners in Parenting program. Over the last 10 years, she's helped navigate over 600 kids and their parents through rough times.
We provide a personalised feedback report for parents, which highlights areas where they're doing really well and provides additional tips and strategies for how they could do better in other areas to further reduce their child's risk of developing depression and anxiety.
Marie has translated decades of research into user-friendly parenting guidelines, practical resources that parents can use straight away.
I've never been through a situation like this. I haven't had kids before, clearly. I was learning, so I felt it really helpful from parenting guidance and advice, really, about if you notice this, try this. If you want to have a conversation, try these conversation prompts. If you notice anxiety, or if you notice times of sadness, you know, perhaps approach it this way. It was almost like a self-paced course that you could go through and understand and get tips and ideas from experts. For Will, it's been more of a learning together.
So how are you feeling about going away?
Nervous, absolutely nervous, but otherwise I'm feeling pretty okay.
There was a time Tanya Alford wondered if her son Luke would ever get through high school. He was badly bullied and stripped of all his confidence.
Is there an orientation? That was heartbreaking, because to see your child go from this really outgoing person to, within such a short amount of time, to not wanting to leave the house, not wanting to talk to people, suicidal thoughts, it was really confronting.
I was quite an extroverted kid, which then turned quite introverted after a really terrible time when I started high school, where I was low all the time. I had no motivation to get out of bed. I wanted to skip school. I didn't enjoy being comfortable with me, my own skin, to a point where I almost took my own life because of it. And I think if it wasn't for this, I don't know if I would even be here.
Some of the key things that parents could look for if they're concerned about whether their child might be developing mental health problems, would be significant changes in their child's behaviour and their mood. Especially for teenagers, for example, they're going through puberty, and that does impact on their mood. So we're looking at changes that are kind of carrying on and going on for weeks continuously, and it's starting to show that impacts on the child's functioning. So, if they start to withdraw from friends, that they would usually love to hang out with, if they start to, not want to go to school, for example, or they're struggling to concentrate at school, some of those kind of what we call functioning difficulties are clear signs that something might be going wrong.
Desperate for some kind of direction, Tanya found Marie's program, which armed her with the techniques to best manage a difficult time.
It brought attention to some things some mental health issues that were red flagged. So they were able to identify things that were going on with Luke, with his answers, that I wasn't able to identify, because for me, in my world, this is the world we live in. This was Luke. So I didn't see anything out of the ordinary for him, but it was out of the ordinary.
Having all these problems buried deep inside of me and not wanting to tell people and not wanting to bother people with just stuff that was going on, and just feeling really alone and isolated. And then my parents, knowing at least a bit where I was coming from, it really just took a burden off me.
What the Partners in Parenting program encourages parents to do, for example, is to hold back from jumping in and solve the problem for their child, but instead to encourage the child or to guide the child to work out the potential solutions to problems they're facing, so that it empowers the child to realize that actually I can work through this. You know, my parents here to support me. I know that, you know, if I make a mistake, they're there. You know, they're going to encourage me and keep me going. But I'm the one who's going to solve this and work through this difficulty. So that's kind of the optimal way for young people to develop those skills, because they'll need them later in life.
I'm now comfortable being me. I can talk to people. I'm extroverted. I'm back to loving my own ways. I no longer feel really dug down.
The program definitely gave me the skills, ideas and advice around how to have the conversations, when, why even, and what outcomes or what behaviours to look for in particular that may present as a red flag or present as we're heading in the right direction.
I think that learning how to deal with problems entirely is a skill I'll never forget or rely on my entire life.